Hello, my name is Harrison. I'm 36 years old, an obscure writer living in a cramped apartment in a small town in the vast expanse of America. Calling myself a writer sounds grandiose, but in reality I'm just a gaunt man hunched over an old laptop, painstakingly crafting every sentence, every word, with the faint hope that one day my work will be published. For over a decade, I've written dozens of manuscripts, sent them out with no success, and tucked them away in a dusty drawer. People call me an undiscovered author, but I see myself as a dreamer trapped in a reality filled with mounting bills and the cries of young children. I have 3 kids. Emma, 8 years old with soft brown hair and bright, hopeful eyes. Liam, a 5-year-old with a goofy smile and tiny hands that always clutch the hem of my shirt. And Noah, the youngest, 3 years old, always giggling and seeking affection. My children are my entire world. But they're also a burden I never could have imagined when I took on the responsibility of being a single father. Claire, their mother, left 2 years ago. She said I was too poor, incapable of supporting a family, that I was a failure unworthy of her dreams. I still remember that final evening when she packed her bags, leaving me with 3 kids and a pile of bills stacked as high as a mountain. Noah was just learning to toddle back then. I've never truly blamed Claire. Not entirely. Perhaps she just wanted a different life, one that was easier with fewer worries. But that doesn't ease the pain of being abandoned in the dead of a cold winter night, holding a screaming Noah, with Emma tugging at my sleeve asking where Mommy was and Liam sobbing, confused about what was happening. Since then, I've been father, mother, cook, storyteller, and the one who works day and night to pay the rent and buy milk for the kids. Our apartment, 2 worn-out bedrooms with yellowed walls, is the only place we can call home. Every morning I wake up before the sun rises. I brew a weak cup of coffee, quietly prepare breakfast with a few slices of toast and peanut butter, wake Emma, Liam, and Noah, dress them, and rush them to preschool and elementary school. I return to the empty apartment, open my laptop, and start typing. But writing doesn't feed 3 children. I take whatever freelance writing jobs I can find online, writing ads, editing text, even translating medical documents. By day, I'm a hired pen. By night, I'm an anonymous author. And amidst all this chaos, I still have to be a father, the one who comforts the kids when they're sick, mends Emma's dress when it tears at school, and reads bedtime stories every night before they sleep. My family? They've never really understood me. My parents live in Florida, in a fancy beachside condo where sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows. They call a few times a year, make polite small talk, then remind me that you should have chosen a practical career like accounting or engineering. They haven't visited since Claire left, and when I ask them to watch the kids for a weekend, they always have an excuse, busy with a yacht trip or a golf game. I used to hope they'd change, that they'd see how hard I've tried to keep this family from falling apart. But all they see is a Harrison who can't make money, not a father desperately clinging to his last shred of hope. Every time I watch my 3 children sleep soundly in their beds, my heart feels heavy. Sometimes I think, if only I could give them more. A spacious house, good meals, weekend trips they've only seen on TV. But all I can do is keep going, day by day, hour by hour, working, writing, and holding my kids close when night falls. I know I'm living on the edge, not just financially, but on the brink of exhaustion. There are nights, after the kids are asleep, when I sit in front of my computer screen and tears just fall. Not because of the story I'm writing, but because of the overwhelming sense of helplessness. No matter how hard I try, I'm still not good enough, still not earning enough, still not strong enough to keep everything together. But then I wipe away the tears and tell myself I can't give up. I can't let Emma, Liam, and Noah see me weak. They need me, and I need them. But no matter how many times I told myself I wouldn't break, fate continued to test us mercilessly. On one freezing morning, Emma started coughing violently. Her hoarse coughs echoed through our small apartment like waves crashing against the fragile walls of my life. At first, I thought it was just a common cold. Kids get sick easily this time of year. But by noon, Emma was burning with fever, her face pale and lips chapped. She lay curled up in bed, her tired eyes looking at me as if to say she couldn't take it anymore. Panic set in. I had no one to turn to for advice. I called the local doctor we knew, and he told me to take Emma to the hospital immediately. In a frantic rush, I packed a small bag with clothes, a water bottle, and fever medicine. Liam and Noah clung to my legs, asking, "What's wrong with Emma, Daddy?" I couldn't answer, only told them to grab their jackets as I scooped Emma up and headed to the car. The hospital was a 10-minute drive from our apartment, but that day the road felt endlessly long. I drove with one hand, the other gripping Emma's cold little hand. In the rearview mirror, I saw Liam and Noah sitting quietly in the back seat, their eyes wide with worry and confusion. I kept whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart, we'll be at the hospital soon." But in truth, I was reassuring myself. When we reached the hospital, doctors and nurses quickly took Emma into the emergency room. I stood outside, clutching the hands of my two younger children, my heart pounding erratically. A nurse asked about Emma's medical history, and I stammered through my answers, barely able to breathe. Finally, the doctor emerged, his face grave, and informed me that Emma had severe anemia and needed immediate in-depth testing. They suspected a serious blood disorder, possibly leukemia. I froze. Leukemia? The word cancer rang in my head like a sledgehammer. With trembling hands, I called Claire, trying to keep my voice steady. "Emma's in the hospital. The doctors say she has a serious blood condition. I need you to come help with Liam and Noah. I can't manage alone." Her response was as cold as ice. "Harrison, you know I've started a new life. I can't drop everything to come back. You'll have to figure it out." I was stunned into silence before the call ended with a long beep. I tried calling my parents, clinging to a faint hope that they'd show some care for their grandchildren. But they brushed me off, saying they were traveling in Europe and couldn't return early. I stood in the hospital hallway, clutching my head, feeling the world collapse around me. Emma was lying in a hospital room, Liam and Noah clinging to my legs. I had no one, not a single soul. I took Liam and Noah to a small waiting room outside the treatment area, letting them play with some worn-out toys. I sat on a plastic chair, laptop in hand, trying to finish a freelance writing job to scrape together some money. But my mind couldn't focus. Every time a nurse stepped out of Emma's room, my heart stopped. That evening, Emma woke up, her weak eyes meeting mine. "Daddy, I'm so tired," she whispered. I leaned down, took her small hand, and soothed her. "I know, my love, you're doing great. Daddy's right here." Liam and Noah sat close to me, eventually dozing off on the chairs. I quietly draped my jacket over them, then sat back by Emma's bedside, holding her hand as if clinging to a fragile thread of hope. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat there, watching the blinking lights of the monitor, listening to the soft hum of the breathing machine, feeling helplessness and loneliness seep into every vein. The next morning, the doctor confirmed that Emma would need long-term hospitalization for treatment and to await further test results. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't leave Liam and Noah at home alone, nor could I leave Emma here by herself. In the end, I begged the hospital to let the younger two stay with us despite the cramped and inadequate conditions. The four of us, 3 if you didn't count Emma lying in the hospital bed, were squeezed into a small hospital room where the harsh white glow of fluorescent lights bathed the ceiling. Meals were rushed, consisting of cold deli sandwiches and boxed orange juice. Liam and Noah played on the hospital floor with a few old toy cars. I cared for Emma while keeping an eye on the younger two, terrified something else might go wrong. Those days felt endless. I was exhausted, but I had no other choice. Each morning I woke up on the hard plastic chair in Emma's hospital room, my body aching, my eyes heavy from lack of sleep. I'd get up early, gently wake Liam and Noah sleeping nearby, and rush them to school. As they walked into their classrooms, I'd hurry back to the hospital to care for Emma. She lay in her bed, her face always pale, her lips dry. I'd hold her hand, whispering, "Daddy's here. You don't have to be scared." During the day, I juggled caring for Emma and working on freelance writing jobs on my laptop to make ends meet. At noon, I'd grab a quick bite at the hospital cafeteria, a sandwich and a watery coffee, my mind preoccupied with picking up the younger kids in the afternoon. Right after school, I'd leave the hospital, drive to pick up Liam and Noah, and return. The 3 of us would pile into the old car, the kids chattering about their day at school, though their eyes still carried worry for their sister Emma. In the evenings, I brought them to Emma's hospital room. Liam would sit on the bed next to her, telling her about school while Noah scribbled on paper. I'd check on Emma's condition with the nurses, keep an eye on the younger two, and type a few lines on my laptop to finish freelance work. Day after day passed in this exhausting, suffocating cycle. I was drained. Some nights I'd fall asleep on the plastic chair by Emma's bed, only to jolt awake when Noah cried out, "Daddy, where are you?" In those long nights, I'd watch my 2 younger children sleeping on the chairs, heads resting against each other, then turned to hold Emma's small hand, telling myself, I have to keep going. For the kids. For Emma. The days in the hospital dragged on, and Liam and Noah gradually grew accustomed to the cramped waiting room. Liam, with his small hands, drew colorful pictures of superheroes to give to his sister, while Noah clutched his toy dinosaur, chattering about imaginary adventures. I tried to keep them occupied, hoping they wouldn't notice the harsh reality creeping in. Emma, their strong big sister, was growing weaker by the day. I juggled caring for Emma, watching over the younger two, and typing freelance articles on my old laptop in the corner of the room. Each day was a battle, not just against Emma's illness, but against myself, against the fear gnawing at me bit by bit. I called Claire one more time, though I knew it was futile. Claire, Emma needs you, I said over the phone, my voice trembling. She's very weak. Can you visit her even just once? But as always, her response was cold. Harrison, I can't come back. I have my own life now. You'll manage. The long beep of the disconnected call echoed, and I sat there in the hospital hallway feeling as though someone had stabbed me in the chest. I called my parents, but they only said, We'll come back after our trip, Harrison. Hang in there, son. Hang in there. The words felt like a mockery. I had no one, not a single family member to share this burden. Just me, Emma, Liam, and Noah, in a hospital room reeking of antiseptic. Angela, a young nurse assigned to Emma's care, was the only light in those dark days. She had brown hair tied up in a high ponytail, gentle eyes, and a soft but strong way of speaking. Every time she entered the room to check Emma's IV or monitor her heart rate, she'd smile at Liam and Noah, sometimes bringing them small candies. Your kids are adorable, Harrison, she said once, watching Noah fall asleep clutching his plastic dinosaur. You're an amazing father. I gave a weak smile and shook my head. I'm not so sure about that, Angela. I'm just trying to keep everything from falling apart. One morning, after nearly 3 weeks of Emma's hospitalization, the doctor called me into a private room. Dr. Carter, a middle-aged man with thick glasses and a deep voice, looked at me with an expression that signaled nothing good. I sat down on the plastic chair across from him, my hands clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Harrison, he began cautiously, we have the results of the in-depth tests. Emma has acute myeloid leukemia, or AML. It's a very serious form of blood cancer. The word cancer exploded in my mind. I felt the blood drain from my face, the air in the room thickening. How serious? I asked, my voice breaking. Dr. Carter sighed, adjusting his glasses. The prognosis for AML in children isn't good, Harrison. We'll start chemotherapy immediately, but I need you to prepare yourself. The survival rate, it's not high. I don't remember how I left the doctor's office. All I know is that I stood in the hallway, my back against the wall, hands clutching my head, trying not to scream. Emma, my 8-year-old girl who used to run around the playground and tell me about her dreams of flying on a dragon, was fighting a disease I couldn't even fully comprehend. I wanted to smash something, to yell at Claire, at my parents, at the world, but I couldn't. I had to go back to the room, smile at Emma, and tell her everything would be okay. The weeks that followed were an agonizing blur. Emma started chemotherapy, and every time I saw her lying in bed, her hair falling out, her face pale, my heart shattered. She still tried to talk, asking about Liam and Noah, smiling when I read her fairy tales. But I could see the light in her eyes fading, like a candle flickering in the wind. Liam and Noah, young as they were, sensed the change. Liam stopped drawing superheroes, instead sketching pictures of a girl lying in bed surrounded by flowers. Noah kept asking, "When will Emma come home to play with me, Daddy?" Angela was there for us more than I could have hoped. She didn't just do her job, checking IVs, taking temperatures, updating charts. She offered quiet comfort. One afternoon, as I sat by Emma's bed, too exhausted to keep my eyes open, Angela came in and placed a hot cup of coffee on the table. "You need to rest, Harrison," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I know you're strong, but you're human too." I looked at her, wanting to say thank you, but my throat tightened. Instead, I just nodded, gripping the coffee cup as if it were a lifeline to some warmth. One night, as Liam and Noah slept on the chairs, Angela sat down beside me. "Do you want to talk?" she asked. I shook my head, but then, like a dam breaking, I started to speak. About Claire, how she left. about my parents who never visited the kids, about my fear of losing Emma, of not being strong enough to protect my children. Angela listened without interrupting, nodding gently and placing a hand on my shoulder. "I lost my brother to illness," she said when I paused. "I know that feeling of helplessness, but you're not alone, Harrison. I'm here, and Emma, Liam, and Noah, they need you more than ever." Her words were like a cool breeze in a storm, but they couldn't ease the growing pain inside me. A week later, Emma's condition deteriorated rapidly. The chemotherapy wasn't working as we'd hoped. She had persistent high fevers, couldn't eat, and the pain made her cry out in the night. I sat by her bed, holding her hand, singing the lullabies I used to sing when she was a baby, though my voice trembled and faltered. "Daddy, I'm so tired," Emma whispered one night, her eyes closed. "I want to go home." I leaned down, kissed her forehead, tears falling onto the pillow. "I'll take you home, princess, I promise." But I couldn't keep that promise. A few days later, Emma passed away. I was sitting by her bed reading a story about a princess and a dragon when the monitor began beeping frantically. "Nurses rushed in, doctor." Carter appeared, but I knew in that moment that Emma was gone. I held her in my arms, her small body now weightless, no longer warm. "Emma, don't go," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Please, don't leave Daddy." But she didn't answer. She would never answer again. The world collapsed. I don't know how long I cried, only that Liam and Noah, waking up amid the chaos, ran to me and clung to me. Liam sobbed. "Where's Emma, Daddy?" Noah, with his innocent eyes, just held my hand and whispered, "Don't cry, Daddy." But I couldn't stop. I had lost Emma, my brightest light, the girl who dreamed of dragons and taught me how to be a father. I felt I had failed. Failed Emma, failed Liam, failed Noah, failed myself. Angela stayed with me through those hours. She didn't say anything, just stood there, a hand lightly on my shoulder, a quiet anchor keeping me from collapsing. She helped care for Liam and Noah, taking them outside to play so I could stay with Emma to say my final goodbye. When I left the room, clutching Emma's tiny sweater, Angela approached and handed me a glass of water. "Harrison," she said, her voice low but steady, "I know it feels like you can't go on, but Liam and Noah are still here. They need you. And Emma, she would want you to keep going." I didn't respond. I couldn't. But deep down, I knew Angela was right. Liam and Noah, the two little boys sitting in the waiting room, still needed me. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and walked out to hold my sons. "We'll be okay," I said, though I didn't believe it myself. But I had to try. For Liam, for Noah, and for Emma, who would forever be a part of me, even if only in memory. The days that followed were a dark void. I arranged Emma's funeral, a simple service in the small church in Willow Creek. Only me, Liam, Noah, and a few kind neighbors attended. Claire didn't show up, only sending a brief text. "I'm so sorry, Harrison." My parents made it to the funeral after their trip, but by then it meant nothing to me. I stood by Emma's small coffin, looking at her peaceful face, wondering if I could go on living without her. The days after Emma's funeral felt like I was no longer Harrison. I was a hollow shell, moving, talking, and breathing, but inside, there was only a pitch-black void. Each morning I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, a man with red-rimmed eyes, deep dark circles, and a gaunt face carved by time's relentless knife. I had lost Emma, my 8-year-old girl with a smile as bright as the sun, who dreamed of dragons and believed her dad could do anything. Now, every time I stepped into the small room where Emma used to sleep, my heart shattered anew. Her bunk bed was still there, with the flower-patterned blanket she loved, but it was now a painful reminder that she would never return. Liam and Noah still needed me. That was the only thing keeping me from slipping into the darkness. But I won't lie, there were moments when I thought about giving up entirely. One night after Liam and Noah were fast asleep, I sat on the living room couch, holding an old bottle of sleeping pills I found in the medicine cabinet. I stared at the small, smooth white pills, wondering if they could take me away. To a place without pain, without bills, without broken dreams. I imagined lying down, closing my eyes and letting everything fade, but then I heard Noah mumble in his sleep, "Daddy." And the image of Liam's confused eyes asking about Emma flashed in my mind. I couldn't do it. I couldn't let my remaining children lose another person. I threw the bottle in the trash, buried my face in my hands, and sobbed, telling myself, "You have to live, Harrison. For them." Our apartment was now eerily quiet. No more of Emma's stories about school, no more of her giggles as she played with Liam and Noah. Liam grew quieter. He stopped drawing superheroes or family portraits. Instead, he spent hours at the kitchen table, sketching flowers, mimicking Emma's blanket, and placing them by her bed. "So Emma can see them, Daddy," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I hugged him tightly, trying not to let him see my tears. Noah, being so young, didn't fully grasp what had happened. Every night he clutched his plastic dinosaur, curled up in my lap, and asked, "Where's Emma, Daddy? When's she coming back?" I didn't know how to answer, so I'd kiss his forehead and say, "She's in the sky, sweetheart. She's watching us." I tried to keep things normal for Liam and Noah, but nothing was normal. I took them to preschool each morning, cooked simple meals, pasta, deli sandwiches, and read them bedtime stories every night. But every action felt heavy, like I was dragging a massive boulder. I kept taking freelance writing jobs, typing soulless articles about 10 budgeting tips for families or how to plan the perfect birthday party on my rickety laptop. But whenever I opened the file for my book, From Ashes, I just stared at the screen, unable to write a single word. How could I write about finding meaning in life when I felt it had vanished? Angela was the one who pulled me out of that mire, though she didn't even realize how vital she was. One afternoon, she knocked on our apartment door holding a box of homemade cookies. "I thought the kids might like these," she said with a gentle smile. I was stunned by her visit. Liam and Noah cheered, rushing to hug her, and for a moment our little apartment seemed to brighten. Angela sat down, played with Noah, helped Liam with a puzzle, and talked to me like we'd known each other for years. "How are you holding up, Harrison?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. I wanted to lie, to say I was fine, but looking into her eyes, I just sighed. "I don't know, Angela. I don't know how to keep going." She didn't push me to say more, just nodded and shared about her younger brother who died of heart disease when she was young. "There were days I thought I'd never get through it," she said. "But then I realized living on was the only way to keep his memory alive." Her words were like a soft breeze, not enough to erase the pain, but enough to make me feel I wasn't entirely alone. One night, after Liam and Noah were asleep, I opened my laptop and looked at the From Ashes file. I didn't plan to write, just to read the lines I'd written long ago when I still believed I could create something worthwhile. But then, as if a door in my heart swung open, I started typing. I wrote about Emma, her smile, her dragon dreams, the way she held my hand in the hospital. I wrote about Claire, her betrayal, and the times she rejected our children. I wrote about my parents who chose a European vacation over their dying granddaughter. And I wrote about myself, a single father, a dreamer crushed by life, yet still clinging to hope for my 2 remaining children. The words poured out like a river, carrying both pain and love. I wrote every night when the apartment was quiet, with only the sound of typing and the steady breathing of Liam and Noah. I didn't know if what I was writing was publishable, but for the first time in months, I felt I was doing something meaningful. Each page was a way to keep Emma alive, to face my pain, and to remind myself I still had Liam and Noah. Angela became our anchor. She visited more often, bringing cookies, storybooks for the kids, or just sitting and listening to me. Once, when I told her about my new pages, she smiled. "You should finish that book, Harrison. I believe it'll touch people." I shook my head, giving a weak laugh. "It's just the ramblings of a failed single dad." But she placed her hand on mine, her voice firm. "No, Harrison. It's the story of a loving father who didn't give up, even when everything was against him. That's a story worth telling." Her words sparked a small light in me. I started spending more time on the book, writing in the late hours after Liam and Noah were asleep. I wrote about the hospital days, about Emma's tired eyes saying, "I'm so tired," about Liam drawing flowers for his sister, about Noah clutching his dinosaur and sleeping on my lap. I wrote about the loneliness, the feeling of being abandoned by family, the nights I considered giving up. But I also wrote about the moments that kept me going, Liam's smile, Noah's laughter, and Angela's kindness. Life remained tough. Bills piled up, the landlord sent rent reminders, and I still had to churn out freelance articles to survive. But the book became a refuge, a way to find myself again. Liam and Noah, too, slowly rediscovered small joys. Liam started drawing superheroes again, though sometimes he'd add a flower in the corner. Noah, with the endless energy of a 3-year-old, pulled me into silly games like pretending to be a dinosaur or building pillow forts. I laughed, though each smile carried a pang of pain. One evening when Angela visited, she brought a small birthday cake, not for anyone's birthday, just because she wanted to celebrate a happy day. Liam and Noah cheered, racing to blow out the candles, and I looked at Angela, my heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Angela," I said, my voice hoarse. "You don't know how much this means to us." She smiled, her eyes gentle. "I just want to see you and the kids smile, Harrison. You deserve it." I began to realize Angela was more than a kind nurse. She was a friend, someone who understood me more than anyone ever had. She didn't try to fix me or push me to move on from the pain. She was just there, like a lantern lighting the path I was walking. And I, though my heart was still broken, began to feel a flicker of hope. Not because things would be easy, but because I knew I wasn't entirely alone. The long nights continued, and I wrote. I wrote about Emma, Liam, Noah, and Angela. I wrote about a man who thought he would break but stood up again, for the love of his children, for the memory of a little girl who taught him how to be strong. I didn't know if this book would change my life, but I knew each word was a step forward, a way to keep my promise to Emma, that I would keep going, even if the world fell apart. 6 months passed since Emma's death. I finally completed the manuscript for From Ashes. I sent it to publishers, clinging to a faint hope. Then one morning I received an email from a small publishing house in New York. I was sitting in the kitchen nursing a watery coffee while Liam and Noah bickered over the last cookie. The email's subject was simple: offer to publish From Ashes. My heart pounded, my hands trembling as I opened it. "Dear Mr. Harrison," they wrote, "we were deeply moved by your raw and heartfelt story. We believe this book has the potential to touch the hearts of many readers." I read it over and over, thinking I must be dreaming. After years of rejection letters, I couldn't believe someone saw value in the words I wrote through tears. The publishing process moved faster than I expected. I worked with an editor named Sarah, a middle-aged woman with a gentle but sharp voice. She helped refine the manuscript, preserving my raw, honest tone while making the story more cohesive. "This isn't just your story, Harrison," Sarah said over the phone. "It's the story of anyone who's lost someone they love, who thought they couldn't go on but stood up again." I nodded, though she couldn't see, feeling a flicker of pride for the first time in years. From Ashes was published on a rainy October day. I didn't expect much, hoping only to sell a few hundred copies, enough to pay off some debts and buy Liam and Noah new toys. But then, like a tidal wave, the book took off. A review in the local paper called it a love letter to fathers, mothers, and broken hearts. A popular blogger shared my story on social media, and soon From Ashes climbed Amazon's bestseller list. I received emails from readers everywhere. Fathers who lost children, single mothers, people who thought they couldn't survive their pain. They wrote, "Your story made me feel less alone." Each letter was a brick, rebuilding a part of me that had crumbled. Then came the interviews. A local TV station invited me to their studio, where I sat under blinding lights, stumbling through stories of Emma, Liam, Noah, and the nights I thought I couldn't go on. "What kept you writing?" the host asked, eyes curious. I took a deep breath, thinking of Emma, her smile. "My kids," I answered. "Emma taught me how to love, Liam and Noah taught me how to live." I wrote to keep my promise to them that I wouldn't give up. From an unknown writer, I suddenly became a name people recognized. Invitations to speak poured in, from local libraries to mental health workshops, then larger events in distant cities. I stood before hundreds, sharing my journey as a single father, the pain of losing Emma, and how I found meaning through writing. Each time I spoke, I felt Emma somewhere, smiling at me as if she were proud of her dad. The book's royalties started coming in, not a fortune, but enough to change our lives. I paid off the overdue rent, bought better groceries, and for the first time in years, I didn't worry about the electricity being cut off. More importantly, I decided to leave the cramped apartment where every corner reminded me of Emma. I found a small house on the outskirts of Willow Creek. Not a mansion, but big enough for Liam and Noah to have their own rooms with a small backyard. On moving day, Liam ran through the house, shouting, "Daddy, I have my own room." Noah, clutching his plastic dinosaur, bounced on the grass, laughing so hard I couldn't help but laugh too. For the first time, I felt I was giving my kids a real home, but the pain of losing Emma never left me. Each night after Liam and Noah were asleep, I sat in the new living room staring out at the dark backyard, thinking of her. I remembered her voice, the way she called Daddy when she needed me, the way she held my hand in the hospital. Some nights I cried, not out of weakness, but because I knew this pain would always be part of me. Yet I also knew I had to live, not just for Liam and Noah, but for Emma, for what she taught me. Angela remained a constant in our lives, an indispensable part. She visited the new house, bringing a small potted plant to brighten the garden, as she put it. Liam and Noah adored her. Liam called her superhero Angela, while Noah clung to her, demanding dinosaur stories. I looked at her, my heart swelling with gratitude. Angela wasn't just the nurse who stood by me in the hospital. She was the one who helped me see life was still worth living. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching Liam and Noah chase each other on the grass, she took my hand. "You've done something amazing, Harrison," she said. "Not because of the book, but because you didn't give up." I squeezed her hand lightly, saying nothing, but knowing she was part of why I was still standing. I started attending a support group for parents who'd lost children, held at a community center in Willow Creek. My first time there, I felt awkward, like I didn't belong. But as I sat and listened to others share about a boy lost in an accident, a girl who died of illness, I realized I wasn't alone. I spoke about Emma, her dragon dreams, and how I nearly gave up. People listened, nodded, and an older woman took my hand, saying, "You're a strong father. She must be so proud of you." For the first time, I felt understood, not as a writer or author, but as a father learning to live with pain. The support group became part of my life. I went weekly, not just to share, but to listen, to learn how to turn pain into inspiration. One member, a father named Tom, talked about planting a garden in memory of his son. I thought of Emma and decided to plant a rose bush in our backyard, her favorite flower. Liam and Noah helped me dig the soil and water it, and every time the roses bloomed, I felt Emma was still here in those vibrant red petals. Our new life wasn't perfect. Some days I woke up with that same emptiness, still heard Emma in my dreams. Liam still drew flowers in the corners of his sketches, and Noah's questions about his sister grew less frequent but never stopped. But we were learning to live, not to forget Emma, but to carry her with us. I kept writing, not just for From Ashes, but because I realized writing was how I faced the world, how I kept my promise to Emma. One evening, as I edited a speech for an upcoming event, Liam walked in holding a new drawing. "Daddy, I made this for you," he said, handing me a sheet of paper. In the drawing, I stood between Liam and Noah, holding hands with a small girl with wings standing on a cloud, smiling. "That's Emma," Liam said, his voice shy. "I think she's happy." I hugged him, tears streaming down my face. "She is happy, son," I whispered. "And Daddy's going to try to be happy too for you and Noah." Angela visited soon after, bringing a tray of freshly baked cookies. She sat down, looked at Liam's drawing, and smiled. "He's got talent, Harrison," she said, "like his dad." I laughed, and for the first time the laugh felt light, unburdened by pain. "Thank you, Angela," I said, "for everything." She didn't reply, just took my hand, and in that moment I knew we were building something, not to replace Emma, but to keep going with her in our hearts. A year after From Ashes was published, my life had changed in ways I never dared to dream. The small house on the outskirts of Willow Creek was now truly our home, mine, Liam's, and Noah's. The backyard bloomed with roses, Emma's favorite flower, and each morning as sunlight streamed through the windows, I felt a flicker of peace seep into my heart. But despite the semblance of stability, the pain of losing Emma remained a scar that would never fully heal. I learned to live with it, like learning to breathe in a room with too little air, but sometimes in the quiet of the night, I still heard her calling Daddy in my dreams. The success of From Ashes brought opportunities I hadn't imagined. I was invited to speak in major cities, from Chicago to Boston, sharing my story with packed auditoriums. I spoke of Emma, Liam, and Noah, of how I nearly broke but stood up again for my children. Each time I spoke, I wasn't just recounting my story. I was keeping Emma alive in the hearts of others. I began writing a second book about forgiveness and healing, though I wasn't sure I had fully forgiven those who had turned their backs on us. Then one day, the past came knocking. My phone buzzed one afternoon while I was helping Liam with his math homework. My mother's number flashed on the screen. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the answer button, but finally pressed it. "Harrison," Her voice came through, shakier than I remembered. "Your father and I read your book. We want to see you, and Liam, and Noah. We regret not being there when you needed us." I sat in silence, listening to her belated remorse, but felt only an emptiness inside. I remembered the times I called for help, when Emma was in the hospital, when I begged them to come even for a day. "We're traveling," they had said, as if a cruise mattered more than their granddaughter. "Thank you for calling," I said, my voice calm but cold. "But I'm not sure I'm ready for you to come back into our lives. Liam and Noah, they need people who are there when it counts." My mother cried over the phone, saying they were wrong, that they wanted to make amends. I agreed to let them see Liam and Noah, but only for short visits, with me there, watching every moment. When they came, I saw how they had aged, their eyes heavy with regret, but I couldn't open my heart. Not out of resentment, but because I needed to protect my children and myself from old wounds. The biggest surprise, though, was Claire. One evening, as I was reading Noah a bedtime story, my phone rang again. It was her number. I barely recognized it. It had been so long since we last spoke. When I answered, Claire's voice came through, strangely sweet, as if she were trying to play the role of the wife she once was. "Harrison, I read your book. It's incredible. I regret leaving. I want to come back, to start over. We could be a family again." I stood frozen, gripping the phone tightly. The image of Claire walking out, leaving me with 3 children, flashed vividly in my mind. I remembered her refusals to visit the hospital when Emma needed her mother most. I remembered her brief text when Emma died. "I'm so sorry." And now, with my name known and a best-selling book, she wanted to return. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Claire, you abandoned our kids when they needed you most. You weren't there when Emma was sick, when Liam and Noah cried for their mom. I'm sorry, but there's no place for you here anymore." She pleaded, saying she had changed, that she regretted everything, but I hung up. I didn't hate Claire, not anymore. I just felt relief, like I'd finally set down a burden I'd carried too long. I looked at Liam and Noah playing on the floor and knew I'd made the right choice. We didn't need Claire. We had each other, and that was enough. While people from my past tried to re-enter, Angela was the one who stayed, quietly but steadfastly. Our relationship grew through small moments. Her bringing cookies, spending afternoons playing with Liam and Noah, listening to me talk about Emma without judgment. One evening, as we sat on the porch under a faint moonlight, I said, my voice hoarse, "Angela, you've done more than you know. You helped me see that life is still worth living, even when it hurts." She smiled, placing her hand on mine. "Harrison, you're stronger than you think. I'm just here to remind you of that." I realized I was falling in love with Angela. Not the fiery love of youth, but a deep, steady love built on understanding and respect. She didn't try to replace Emma or fill the void she left. She brought a new warmth, a sense that I could rebuild from the ruins. Once when I asked if she'd stay for dinner, she laughed. "Only if you promise not to make pasta again." I laughed too, feeling for the first time that the laughter was light, unweighed by pain. A year after From Ashes was released, I became a symbol, not for fame, but for my story. I continued speaking at workshops, not just about writing, but about surviving loss. I hosted sessions at the support group, listening to other parents share about their children. I spoke of Emma, how she taught me to love, and how Liam and Noah helped me find meaning again. Each time I shared, I felt I was not only helping others, but healing myself. Liam and Noah grew day by day. Liam, now 6, started asking deeper questions. "Daddy, does Emma see me when I play soccer?" I hugged him, saying, "She's always watching you, Liam. She's up in the sky, cheering for you." Noah, now 4, still clung to his plastic dinosaur, but began telling his own stories about Emma flying on clouds. I listened, smiled, and held those moments in my heart like precious gems. Angela became an inseparable part of our lives. One day, as we planted another rosebush in the garden, she knelt beside Liam and Noah, helping them water it. "Do you think Emma would like this flower's color?" she asked. Noah nodded eagerly, and Liam gave a shy smile. I looked at her, my heart swelling with a feeling I hadn't known in so long: hope. Not long after, I proposed to Angela, not with a grand gesture, but with a simple question. "Would you like to build a family with us?" She smiled, her eyes sparkling, and nodded. "I'm already part of you, Harrison." We didn't erase the past. Emma was still there, in every rose, in every drawing of Liam's, in every story Noah told. But we learned to live with her memory, turning pain into part of our journey. I kept writing, not just for myself, but for those who found solace in my story. I wrote about love, loss, and resilience. And I lived for Liam, for Noah, for Angela, and for Emma, the girl who taught me that even in brokenness, light could be found. One morning, I stood in the garden watching Liam and Noah run and laugh under the sunlight. Angela stood beside me, hand in hand, and I felt a peace I once thought I'd never know again. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. A new family built from the ashes with love and hope as its foundation. I looked up at the sky, whispering, "Emma, I did it. Are you proud of me?" And in that moment, I felt a gentle breeze as if she were smiling from above.